What is, if I may flip the script a little bit, what was your wake up moment? When did you realize what your purpose was on the planet?
Well, um, I was a specialist in suicide prevention for 30 years, and none of my patients killed themselves. Not a bad track record.
Mm.
And and I've been trying to figure out what the heck I did. And I'm introducing it in Why Coping You Can Heal. So I'm introducing an approach, a field that I'm hoping to grow called surgical empathy. And what is surgical empathy? So I'm gonna go off into something else. So if you didn't go to the bathroom before and you're watching or listening, you can do it you can do it now again. So I was a suicide specialist, and here's how I look at people who are feeling suicidal. They're feeling hopeless. And when you're feeling hopeless and powerless and useless and worthless, and life is purposeless and meaningless, it's like an abscess in the dark night of the soul. And when people give you suggestions and advice, sometimes it works, but a lot of times you can't access it because you're stuck. And so surgical empathy is a way of going into the hopelessness abscess. That's why it's surgical empathy. And you go into it and you keep them company there until they begin to cry from not feeling alone. And as they begin to cry from not feeling alone, I've been doing this for years. I'm retired, so I teach people who are interested in how to do this with their kids that they're worried about. But when people feel less alone, and my book, Just Listen, is about how do you cause people to feel felt. So the tingling feeling you had when I went into, you're trying to protect your viewers and listeners from people that may be brilliant, but you just can't post it. The tingling feeling is you felt, not just understood. The tingling feeling was, yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't want to have to go back to someone and say, I'm sorry, maybe we can do it over again, but we can't use it. And you might come up with an excuse, a little imposter syndrome excuse, but but you might not want to say we can't use it because my audience would get no value out of it. You're not going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I learned to listen into people. And what helped me do that is one of my earliest mentors was what Warren Bennis was to leadership. A fellow named Dr. Ed Schneidman was to suicide prevention. I mean, he was one of the top 3 people. And he would keep, we were both at UCLA, and he would go see still suicidal patients that had to be discharged. So they weren't acutely suicidal, but you can't keep them there forever. And sometimes the residents didn't want to see them as outpatients because they felt they're going to kill themselves. So Ed would go up, do a consultation, and refer them to me. And I was really fortunate because after my training, I didn't go into an institution where I had to check boxes and then report, this is what I did. And what happened as I started meeting with this still suicidal people, and I look into their eyes, what I picked up in their eyes that they were screaming at me with their eyes is, you're checking boxes and I'm running out of time. And I could feel that the more I checked boxes, the more they were running out of time. And so I threw away the boxes. And I learned to listen into their eyes. And if you're listening in and you're worried about one of your kids, you're worried about a spouse, but I'm especially keen on helping parents get through to teenagers they're worried about. In fact, there's a good friend of mine whose 14-year-old son killed himself 2 years ago, and he reached out to me afterwards. And his name is Jason Reed. And if you look up teen mental health webinar, Jason Reed on YouTube, he did a Goalcast video. Goalcast is a company that creates 8 or 9 minute videos, and his had I think 9 million views. And he meets with 15 men about how he blew it with his son. And it's chilling and it's riveting, but he's edited it so you see the 10-minute video, and then I'm speaking to parents. So this is how you can get through your kids.
Wow.
And so if you can relate to that, if you're not just an entrepreneur, but you're a parent, you're worried about a kid, here's a taste of surgical empathy. While you're doing an activity with them, because they can't stand these, heart-to-heart, face-to-face, eye-to-eye conversations that they don't initiate. Teenagers don't want those. So if you're doing an activity with one of your kids that you're worried about, here's the few questions you ask them. You say to them, at its absolute worst, how depressed are you capable of feeling? They're going to go, what? At its absolute worst, how depressed are you capable of feeling? Now, they may look at you because this is an unusual conversation. They'll say, what's this about? You say, I have a reason for this. Just answer the question. And they'll look at you and they'll say, pretty bad, Dad, pretty bad, Mom. And the second question is, and when you were feeling that, how alone do you feel? Why are you asking me this? How alone do you feel? Pretty alone. Pretty alone or very alone? Alone. The reason I'm asking this is because as your parent, I can't allow you to be alone in hell. If you become a parent and you get the owner's manual, don't allow your kids to be alone in hell. It's written there. Then the third thing you say to them is, take me to the last time it happened. What? Yeah, take me to the last time. Was it 2:30 in the morning and you had a big test and you couldn't get back to sleep? Take me to it. And here's an interesting thing. When you get another person, like your teenager, to describe in graphic detail at 2:30 in the morning so that you can see it as their mom or dad, they re-experience it, but they're not alone.
Wow.
Yeah, I was wandering around. I couldn't get back to bed. I was looking for some Benadryl. I know you have one of your sleeping pills hidden somewhere, and I wanted to put my fist through the wall, and then you keep them talking because obviously they didn't do anything. So what did you do? And what happens is, as they talk it through and they feel less alone, they may start to tear up. And then what you say to them is, I've got a favor to ask you. Actually, I've got a direct order to give you as my son or daughter. Sometimes it's difficult to get my attention or your mom's attention. You feel this way, you get our attention. You do whatever it takes to get our attention, because there's nothing more important than going to where you're feeling. So anyway, this interview went, I don't know where it went, but hopefully there's something in that.